This conference will now be recorded.
Good
evening. This is Chairman Mike McCoo with Willington Board of Finance. Before we call to order, I'm just going to verify that we have board members here. Peter Tanaka, I see you. Can you hear me?
I can. I'm here.
Very good. Matt Clark, I see you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Excellent. Jeffrey Prusak, I see your tile, I believe.
I am here. I can hear you. I can't wait for this. This is so exciting.
Good to know. Okay, Steph Summers, I see you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Elizabeth Wolf, are you here? Okay. Mike Perry, are you here? Do you hear me?
Yep, I hear you.
Very good. Marissa, you can hear me and I can hear you, right?
Yep.
Okay. Erica, ex officio member, I see you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Mike.
Okay. 7:05 p.m. I'm calling to order the May 7th meeting of the Willington Board of Finance.
Mike, is Christina here?
Christina is going to be late if she can get here. She did send me an email this afternoon indicating she would be late and asked us to place Elizabeth Wolf in her spot. So I'll take a motion in seating of alternates for Elizabeth Wolf in place of Christina Milos.
She's not here.
Oh, she isn't here yet. I'm sorry. She hasn't come in yet.
All right. So can I make a motion to seat Mike Perry for Christina Milo?
Yes. Can we get a second for that?
Second, Pete Tanaka, second.
Okay. This is Mike McCoo again. We have a motion and a second to seat Mike Perry for Christina Milos. Can I get a question?
Oh, I was just going to say Lisa's just having technical troubles getting in. So she just texted me. So.
Okay. Well, we'll keep moving for now. Okay. All those in favor of the motion, please. Marissa, can you do a roll call, please?
Mm-hmm. Jeff?
Yes.
Peter?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Steph?
Aye.
And Mike?
Aye. Just one item to clean up here. Mike Perry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Every time you open your microphone, we get a lot of background noise. I don't know if you can help us out with that.
I'll keep it muted unless I see something. 'Cause I don't know what it is.
Yeah, there's something happening there which makes it hard to understand you.
I'll work on it, see what I can do.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we're going to move on to present to speak. As with the last meeting, we're going to try to limit to short periods of time. Obviously, we want on topic. And we are very much in line with the governor's request and our desire to do a good job for our commitment to the townspeople that we seek and understand public input. As you can see, looking at the agenda for the first time, I've added a present to speak at the end of the meeting also. I think that's important as we endeavor to get the extra input in this unique process we're in. So we'll ask that people who are present to speak who have video can wave their hand. Otherwise, at the end of that, we will ask to open the microphones on the phones. So if you're on a phone and can't wave your hand, don't worry, we're going to give you a chance. So having said that, present to speak, people start with, I see Laurie Semprabon.
Lori Semperbon. I just want to, as a citizen of the town of Willington, I just want people to, this Board of Finance to consider carefully that, yes, we need to be concerned with people who are hurting and struggling with monetary issues right now, but we shouldn't devastate the rest of the town because we have some people who are hurting. So I hope that you'll consider a reasonable budget and support the programs in town. For example, I think there may be a lot more issues in the fall with students. It's too bad the Board of Ed didn't accept the free mental health services, but who knows what other costs we're going to have. I think we need to support our Board of Education and our budget in town. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori Semperbon. A reminder to people, particularly because we're in this unique environment, as Lori did, make sure you state your name and the street you live on, please. Other present to speak. If you're on video, wave your hand, please. Peter Latinzix.
Good evening, Peter Latinchich, 97 Strass Road. I want to express my gratitude to the town leadership, Erica, and the Board of Finance for working so hard on this issue and recognizing, particularly in the last meeting, the intense economic environment we're in. If you look at the state website, our controller, Kevin Lembo, agrees with you. He's forecasting a $170 million deficit in the state's budget and just forecasted an additional 30 million drop in sales revenue. He is himself, and I'll quote his words, saying that the scope and suddenness of this crisis is without precedent in living memory. I don't think he's exaggerating. And I'll say to you all that his last comment on his summary page from his April 1 report is he feels the biggest risk for policymakers is not doing too much, but rather doing too little in the face of these enormous challenges. I appreciate your efforts and I wish you all well. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Other present to speak on video, wave your hand, please. And I'm not sure if I'm seeing all the screens, so Mike D'Amato, if you can also keep an eye out for other people.
Yeah, I don't see anybody else from video on my end.
Okay, could you open the microphones on the phones, please?
Yeah, so it
I'm
looks like we
here.
only have...
This is Elizabeth Wolf, and I'm here. Just want to let you know.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. You'll stay as an alternate for the moment. We've already seated Mike, so we'll keep the meeting going for the moment, but hang with us.
Sure.
So it looks like we only have 2 people that are participating by phone, and I know one is Donna. There's one other person, and that mic is open. So I'm going to just hit the unmute button for all of us, and anybody who wants to speak can go for it. And if not, you can remute yourself, but you should be good now.
Okay.
Okay, this is Chairman McCoo asking if there's anyone listening to this meeting who's not a board member who would like to speak and present to speak. Could you make yourself known? Speak up, please. Say your name. Okay, Peter Tanaka, you had a comment?
Yeah, I have 3 comments. I don't know when the proper time to make them is. I don't see them on the agenda except under maybe next steps on how to move forward. So perhaps I should save them for then.
Okay. Well, as long as it fits into discussing revised budget requests or next steps, you're there. Otherwise, if you...
Oh, well, let me get this one here now then, if you don't mind. The Hartford Courant from Saturday, April 25th had a large headline that said Connecticut stands to lose billions in taxes. And I promise you I won't bore you with the whole thing, but it says that Connecticut stands to lose as much as $2 billion in taxes over 2 years due to the virus. And Lamont's budget office is projecting a deficit of $500 million in the current year and $1.4 billion in the year that starts July 1st. 85% of the deficit is due to loss of revenues. And he said that Lamont said that not only has income taxes disappeared, but also the sales tax. And the amount of future money from Congress is uncertain. There's no way we're going to be able to get this economy moving again if you have states across the country forced to slash services and raise taxes. So I don't believe that this is the time to raise taxes. That's from the Saturday, April 25th, 2020 Hartford Current. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think that's it for present to speak. Let's move on to new business. Suspense list from tax collector. Mike D'Amato, do you have the ability to put this up on the screen or not? I should have asked you ahead of time. It has been sent to all the members.
I'm prepared to share my screen as Janice sent them to me, if that will help, Mike.
Yep, give me 1 second. I'll pass it all over to you. Are you ready now, Erica?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
For anyone who is watching or listening, the suspense list is a list of taxes that have been deemed by the tax collector through a typical process to be uncollectible. There are various reasons that things are uncollectible. For those who can see the list, you can see it totals almost $12,000 from the course of 4 fiscal years. And sometimes it relates to motor vehicles that have been lost to various reasons or whatever. But this list, you can see in the description from the tax collector, this is the combined list, again, about $12,000 over the course of 4 years. So do we have any discussion or questions on this before I move to a motion?
Erica Wyszynski, First Selectman. Our tax collector is on the line as well. So if there are any questions, she's prepared.
Janice, this is Mike McCoo, the chairman. Do you have anything you want to add?
No, pretty much what it reads. The real estate for 18 is the Cater Rock properties. Motor vehicle for this year are deceased people or a lot of our international students that may have gone back in March because of the whole COVID-19. So others are, from former suspense years unable to locate. So yeah, pretty on par with what's been done the past few years.
Okay. Any questions from board members?
Yep.
Go ahead, Mike. Matt, I'm sorry.
So maybe I don't understand. Are we writing off property taxes from international students that have been gone less than a couple of weeks?
This isn't new.
Yeah, a lot of these are ones that may not come back. We send out delinquent statements every month, and these are the same people that keep coming back, that, we cannot locate them at this point. If they do resurface, we can still collect the tax, but at this point, we just put it in suspense, thinking that they may not end up coming back to the States. Therefore, we may not see the funds.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
If I will, Erica Wyszynski, First Select Woman. To Matt's point, because it's the 2018 grand list, they may have been students who left last year, not current.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the memo sent from the tax collector and put the included taxes into the suspense book?
So moved.
Tanaka, so moved.
Jeff Prusak, second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion on the suspense list? Okay, let's take a vote. Marissa, please.
Peter,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
Mike Perry,
Aye.
Mike McCoo,
Aye. Still got Matt there somewhere, I think, too.
there we go. I just had a mind. Matt Clark.
Aye.
Okay, that's 6 yeses.
Okay. Motion carries unanimously. On to new business item number 2, review and discuss revised budget requests. As I emailed out to all members and was also distributed in a link with the agenda to the public, we have various revised requests for basically resulting from our letter from the last meeting asking that the various budget submitting agencies try to produce a 0% over last year and a -3% from last year. We had varying levels of success in that and varying levels of justifications. As you saw, there were cover letters with many of the budgets and explanations. Certainly, we have certain budgets that we're not at all surprised can't take a hit. I did share with board members information about the Board of Ed MBR situation, which for anyone listening from the public who doesn't know, the minimum budget requirement says that essentially, I'll summarize it briefly. It essentially says that you can't go backwards in your educational spending from one year to the next. So that in itself would have meant that a -3% would have likely invoke a penalty, and that penalty is removed from revenue in the educational cost share and is at times, I believe there's a factor, a multiplier on the penalty. So I did share that. Yes, Matt, I see you waving your hand. Hang on. So that's just sort of a primer to get us started on the conversation. Matt Clark, go ahead.
Yeah, I looked at the MBR calculation that Phil requested from the state of Connecticut, and a 3%, according to the state of Connecticut, a 3% reduction in our Board of Education budget will still meet our MBR calculation. I think it's 12,577,000 or something like that. So if we cut 3%, we will still be okay on our MBR.
Phil, can you comment on that further? Or maybe I misread the letter. I didn't understand that to be the truth, but maybe if you have some more information on that, we can discuss this.
The MBR is not calculated yet for this upcoming year. And so if you're looking at a prior one, when we contacted the state, that's the prior one, but the current MBR number has not been calculated yet.
Okay, so we don't know, and how, refresh us again on how that is calculated, because there are a couple of things that factor into it, including the reduction in Region 19, correct?
Correct. I mean, it's a little convoluted. It's not as easy as just your flat budget number from the prior year. They look at a lot of different factors, and they look at different ways that you could have a reduction, and that's obviously a loss in students. And it's not off the current year. It's off of I think 2 years off. And so with the cut from Region 19, it's factored into it. But the current number is not built in yet. It's not built.
Well, I have.
Matt Clark, go ahead.
There was an email that you sent to the state that Mike sent to us, and the response There's no date on it. I've been looking for a date. The response looks like this year. I mean, did they send you something from last year?
What's the, I don't know what you're looking at.
It says
Yeah.
District 160, district name Willington, and then 2019, 2020 final budgeted appropriation. Then it says 2019, 2020 net assessment. I mean, it's a whole sheet. It's an email that Mike forwarded to us.
Right,
It
Phil
is.
Stevens, you look at the top of that, and I don't have it in front of me on my screen, but I believe the title of that document is 1920. The MBR for 2021 is not established.
No, it says Bureau of Fiscal Services 2020, 2021 minimum budget requirements, MBR.
So it says, I have the email, I believe, here, and it says, from you, Phil, good morning. I received an update from Kevin Chambers. By the way, your email is dated 4/20. He says the Willington appropriation would need to be at least what it was last year, 8.689095, but his figure is only a guideline.
Correct.
And then there is a attachment, which I'm opening now. Right, and I believe this is the attachment that Matt Clark is referring to, and it has his preliminary calculations.
Well, it doesn't say preliminary calculations on here.
Yes, but the information from the person who did it said that this is preliminary.
Correct.
When are we going to have final then? We're 2 weeks out.
I honestly don't know when they publish these. I don't know.
Mike, Pete
Yeah.
Tanaka.
Go ahead, Pete.
So we are past when we would normally vote on our budget
Correct.
for 2021 as a town. And are we to understand we still do not have an MBR for the budget year we would have voted on already had this been a normal year?
That is what yes, I understand that same information.
So we could have violated the MBR and they wouldn't have, we wouldn't have known that until after the town voted if the state is moving at this pace. Is that correct?
Possibly. Okay. So let's.
You see my frustration with that, however, Mike?
Yes, of course.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. I don't know that we, unfortunately, I don't know that we have a way to get that answer right now. Fortunately, we have another week until we can do appropriations because we don't have appropriations on this agenda. So we can't do appropriations until at least we put it on the agenda for next week. So we can get a lot of discussion in here. Perhaps we can task people to get more information for us in this meeting that we will have for the next meeting. Maybe we can get better MBR information by the next meeting when we have to make votes.
Bill, do you think, Steph Summers, do you think that's possible to get a tighter number?
I mean, I have no idea. I can only go off of what Kevin, you can hear me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. I can only go off of what Kevin Chambers said. And he said, again, he's stressing these figures as a guideline and not absolute figures because they have no idea what may happen for 2021. So he's the guy, the lead of who sets this number. You know, and his statement is really, the Willington's appropriation would need to be at least $8,689,095, which would be flat off of last year's budget for K8, pre-K8. So I can't tell you if I'll have that information or not. I can ask when it comes out. That's all I can guarantee.
Bill, do you know what it is that's missing from the state's point of view to come up with that number? Like, do you know why they can't make that calculation?
I do not.
Okay. Has this come up in previous years?
No, because I don't think we generally look at MBR as our go-to number.
Okay. I guess it's more of a question this year because of this, because the math that we're trying to do with the zeros and the -3s. I guess that makes it more relevant this year. Do you think you could at least inquire before the next meeting as to how we get a better number, or if it's going to be possible, and if they say they can't give you a better number, if there's any further guidance? As Pete Tanaka said, we're very late in the process compared to normal.
Yes, no problem.
Thank you. Okay, so how would board members like to proceed? Do we want to pick a particular budget and start looking through the details of it?
Mike? May I ask
Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
one request before we get into the nuts and bolts of this. I did get the attachment, the 47-page attachment. However, even when I blow it up to double size, a lot of it's unreadable. Some of the charts were originally made in landscape, then printed in portrait, then copied, then scanned, and they're gray messes. Is there any way we could get a cleaner original and on paper for the next meeting so we can get a better look? Also, it'd be helpful if we had longer than 24 hours or 48 hours to take a look at it. There's a lot of information there.
Right. Well, I agree with that last comment, and that's part of the reason that tonight is only discussion and review, so that we have time between now and the next meeting. But what I will do is I will forward you the emails from Donna. Donna had collected those together, and it was too large to email as one document. Part of what she did was scan it and PDF it so that it could be conveyed in a smaller file size. So I'll forward those emails to you, which makes it easier. There are still a couple that are landscape versus portrait, but they're very clear and easy to read. And I'll email that to all the board members at some point during this evening here. Erica, you have a comment on that?
If you'd like me to share them on the screen, everyone can see them as you go through them, and they may be able to be a little bit more visible if that will help.
Okay, hang on just a second. I just want to go back to Pete's first. Your first comment again, Peter. Can you refresh me?
It's just that it was I believe 47 pages, and if you subtract the first page, which was the agenda, that's a tremendous amount of numbers to crunch through in the 48 hours we had. And the parts that I couldn't read, I couldn't even crunch through. So there's some of this that I really am uncomfortable discussing at this point.
Sure. Matt, I saw you. Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to remind people that and present some data from that webinar that Erica, sorry, I had to look at your spelling on your name, Erica, that Erica provided us. So yeah, I think it's important that we understand the background. This is more about matching, our ability to pay with our what we need. And if we were just diving into budgets, I don't think it's going to be that helpful, really. I think we need to first look at what we expect to have happen, and then ask ourselves some very specific questions regarding what we anticipate to be our income coming in for this coming year, what we expect to happen to state revenues or reimbursements, and then try and plan where we need to be on our budgets. I think the starting point for that is, go over the recommendations from the Connecticut Council of Municipalities, who made some really good suggestions. Did everyone have a chance to read that, all the board members?
I did. Stephanie, you have a comment?
Yes, I do. I agree with Matt. I think that we need to, because when I went through the whole webinar, but just in addition to that, I've been thinking that we need to be kind of clear about overarching expectations for this budget process and things that we're thinking, because I personally don't need a lot more information about the drama of what's going on right now financially and personally for people. You know, but I have put some thinking toward what we should, you know, what some of our principles might be. And I've also seen a lot of advice saying, you know, that we should be transparent with what our philosophy and our approach is, rather than just get down in the weeds and start cutting. And across the board cuts aren't good, because you really need to engage some stakeholder views on that. We don't want to move the town in a backward motion. But to me, there's some principles, i.e., one principle for me is keeping the staff as whole as possible. But that also means I don't think it's a time to add staff or add hours. I mean, there's a sort of conservative approach that we can take that's careful. And if we have to do some things in the future, because when we really realize what's happening or what's unfolding, then we're prepared to make that decision. I think I feel strongly about keeping the mill rate as it is.
Okay.
And
Thank
just
you.
I think if we discuss things like that, we can have a, you know, sort of a guide for how we go about this.
Understood. Thank you, Steph. This is Mike, the chairman. Matt, I think this would be a fine time to go through your presentation. What I would ask, though, in the interest of time, and because all the board members have it already, as well as volumes of other stuff, that you go through it fairly expeditiously. And also remember, for everyone, the title page on this presentation says Board of Finance. It's not a Board of Finance produced document. It's produced by a member of the Board of Finance, Matt Clark, as a presentation to the board. So it's not a document going out to the town as a product of the Board of Finance, just for clarity. What is our easiest way to get that on the screen?
I can share
Matt?
my screen if you'll let me.
Okay, Mike D'Amato, can you do a screen share with Matt?
Yep, give me 1 sec. Matt, are you good for me to pass it over?
Yeah, sure. I just have to hit screen as soon as it lights up, right?
No, I'm gonna send it over to you, and it's gonna ask you if you're ready.
Sure. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
So one moment, please. Okay, there you go. Yeah, this isn't a Board of Finance document. It's just you know, and it's a review and a summary of what we learned when attending that CCM webinar. Thank you very much, Erica, for making that suggestion. It was very, very useful. I'd kind of like to have us, you know, instead of just going through it all together all at once, is have a little discussion. So if anybody wants to chime in, I'll stop talking. So I'm going to move forward. And the last couple of pages of this are not from the CCM. They're work that I did on economic projections for the town of Willington. So, how do I move? There we go. Yeah, unemployment's gotten worse. We're up to 30 million unemployed in America. Here's the recession from 2008, and here's where we were last week. Not this week. Last week. This week it's even worse. These are the projections from PFM about what this recession might look like. This is the 2008 recession, the dotted line. This is their best case scenario, the green line, and this is their worst case scenario, the red line. This was so they're projecting we bottom out in 2020 here, and then we get back on track in the fourth quarter of 2020. And what they say is we should ground our thinking in multiple scenarios. And we need to think about what kind of contingencies or extra spending we might have, and then analyze our budget under more than one scenario. Don't limit ourselves just to the best case. That would be a bad move. And this is based on Bank of America, Merrill Lynch. So it's interesting. They presented this one, and then they present more of them in other parts of that presentation. You know, the economists are saying we could have a V recovery, a U recovery, an L recovery, a W, or a swoosh. So, and they don't know what's going to happen. No one knows what's going to happen. It's a forecast. It's all about the future. More and more, they said in that webinar, it's looking like this is going to be a swoosh, which is a steep drop and a long, slow recovery. You know, let's just hope it's not an L, which is a steady decrease and no recovery. And that swoosh looks something like this. It swishes back up again. They're saying that this unemployment could reach 20% of and GDP could be almost cut by 1/4. And here's this is our COVID recession. They're saying minus 23% and unemployment rate peaking at 20%. We're almost above 20% now. And I have to tell you, I disagree with this number. I don't think that's going to happen. They're saying, PFM says this is going to be a services-led recovery. Excuse me, a services-led depression. Because it's only services, it's going to be sharp and steep and terrible, but we're going to come out of it really quickly. And I just don't subscribe to that. You know, we're having major layoffs at major corporations, permanent ones, already. And those people aren't going to have jobs. They're not going to be adding to the economy. They're not going to be spending money. I don't see us coming out of this quite that way.
Hey, Matt, this is Mike, the chairman. Just one comment on that. Let's be clear that 20% unemployment is not a Willington number. That is a national number, correct?
That is a national number.
Right. Okay. We should, it's valuable information, but we should also look at local when we get a chance.
Yeah, and that's in the last 3 pages, Mike.
Right.
Then they go here, and here's another chart that they're saying. This one says Moody's is saying that there's a recovery in 2022, and then if we go severe, we're not going to be fully recovered until 2023. So what they, you know, under the rubric of what are we seeing many individual governments do? Use a baseline scenario, use a downside scenario, be dynamic in terms of the scenarios, plan for impacts in property taxes and state aid. You know, I know that that's something we should talk about. Anyway, all right. Property tax will be stable in the short term because much of it is done in escrow through mortgage payments. So in order to not pay property taxes, people will have to not pay their mortgage. And they're going to try like hell not to do that. Education and other intergovernmental funding, there's going to be a trickle-down effect. If the pie is small, this is a quote from the guy who was presenting. If the pie is smaller, the slices are going to be smaller. Moody's projects that Connecticut will lose 13% of its revenue in a moderate recession. If it's moderate, the tax income for the state of Connecticut is going to go down 13%. If it's severe, it's going to go down 17%. We have to look at this and go, we're at risk of not getting intergovernmental transfer payments and money that in past years we've been able to use. They may cut it. I'm going to go forward. Sorry, they said engage departments early and agencies early to identify savings. So we're ahead of the curve here. We asked our agencies and our departments to do that. They indicate you should look at reconfiguring work, quantify monetary impacts of actions, get early buy-in and with stakeholders and identify what we can do in terms of cuts we can make. And they say instead of doing, and this means when we engage people early and we try to get everybody thinking on the same page, that means we don't have to do broad, cuts. Everyone's -2 or everyone's -5. That's not helpful because we have different needs in different areas. So we did the right thing. Many municipalities are having hiring freezes. They're not hiring people in terms of seasonal workers. They're having layoffs and furloughs. They're not filling vacancies. Attrition and early analysis they're starting to predict very early, I guess in California or somewhere, that health insurance costs in 2022 or 2021 are going to go up a lot because those insurance companies have to recoup all that money that's being spent treating coronavirus. So we can look at we're liable to look at some very unhealthy for us, increases in our payments for health insurance. Emerging best practices, full disclosure, and have transparent budget assumptions. I think we need to make some assumptions about what's going to happen, to our town, and use that as our baseline. We need to record what the assumptions were based on, and then why we cut what we did, and then document. So they recommend buying time to manage the uncertainty that we're all facing right now. And that could mean implementing different levels of appropriation control. We could say, we could change the way we allow people to spend money. We could have target budgets. We could do an iterative ongoing course corrections, meaning we make things really, really tight, and then we find out that things aren't so bad and we open up a little bit. Or we find out we're going to go a moderate course, and it turns out that it's worse, and we have to not spend as much. Everybody's dealing in the dark without knowing what's going to happen. Document everything because there might be a potential for a bailout. We should be proactive in identifying line items and then tracking how much of different expenditures we're having to do with coronavirus. Anything that has to do with coronavirus, if there's a bailout, we might get money for. Use of reserves.
Matt, just a comment on that. We are doing that in some areas already. So it's good advice, and it is in the works.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Keep moving so we can keep the agenda moving.
Yep. Use of reserves. It's pouring outside, but other risks aren't going to go away, such as a natural disaster. North Korea is firing at South Korea. The other risks that we face that haven't gone away, and this health emergency could get worse instead of getting better. They recommend using reserves for one-time costs is preferable to covering shortfalls in the budget. This chart here is interesting. So it's a correlation between the U.S. Economy and the Connecticut economy, and what they're saying here is that there's a pretty high correlation. And they also say historically Hartford GDP contracts more and contracts longer than the US GDP. That's what this is right here. This whole little area right here, this is the US and this is us. So way back when we did better, and then better again, and then the US economy took off, and we sort of going around the bottom here.
Matt, question on that. Is that Hartford as a city or Hartford's regional economy? Because it's certainly not Willington. Regional economy? Okay.
Regional economy, yeah. So the green here means that this is Matt Clark, not the CCM. We need to understand what our town will be experiencing moving forward. I did a little work. This is only going to take less than 5 minutes. I looked at population change, the length of the contraction, and the depth of the contraction that we can expect. This is the U.S. population from 2005 to 2020. It went up 11.4%. Excuse me, sorry, I got to go backwards. It went up 11.4%. Right here, this is the recession, the 2008-2009 recession, is red stuff. So you can see that it goes up. It goes 5, 7.3, 9.9. As soon as the recession's over, it starts getting better. See what I mean? Our unemployment rate starts dropping as soon as the recession's over in the U.S. And in 5 years, we're back down to where we were pre-recession. This is Connecticut. Here's our recession. Connecticut unemployment keeps rising after the recession is over. It goes from 8.3 right here, then it goes up to 9.1 after the recession's over, and then 8.8. And unemployment declines to pre-recession levels after 9 years. It takes us till 2017 to make back all those jobs. And Connecticut's recession grew at 1.5%. Our population grew at 1.5% over those years. Here's Willington. So our numbers are actually, they're not bad. So this is good news. You know, we don't do as badly as the state of Connecticut does. Our unemployment isn't as high, but our unemployment keeps rising after the recession, the last recession. You know, 4.26, and it keeps going up and up for 2 more years. And unemployment declines to pre-recession levels after 9 years, same as state of Connecticut. And our population has decreased by 5% since 2005. You know, we experience recessions worse than the rest of the country. We're not in a dynamic economy. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of, I'm not going to make commentary. I'll move on. I looked at this and I'm like, okay, if this is the case, all right, and I did all this information and this data. I looked at Congressional Budget Office. Here's what they're projecting nationwide for unemployment: 3.8, 14, 16, and 11.7. So this right here is all projected. So what ours is usually better. It's usually about 3 or 3.5% better than the country as a whole. So what can we expect? 10.5, 13.5, and I kept it the same. Here's where this nation starts getting better. Goes down here. That's not going to happen to us. It's going to take us longer to get out of it. So, you know, these are things that.
Excuse me, Matt. What are you using for those numbers or for those conclusions? Where's your math there?
This right here?
No, Willington's. The Matt Clark numbers.
So I just said we do better than the country as a whole. So and we do better than the state of Connecticut. It's about 3%. So I just simply took the projected of what the nationwide was, and I said, just decrease it. This is the best we can do. I'm not aware of any specific projections.
There's not a reason they're 0.5 or anything. There's, you know, I just thought maybe you did a calculation other than that sort of general trend. I just wanted to.
Yeah, general trend. What are they projecting for unemployment? We usually do better than them by about 3.5%. Subtract it. I look at this and I think, you know, we have to estimate, you know, how much that state-approved property tax abatement or delay program is going to cost us in terms of revenue. We need to estimate the property tax payment shrink, any changes in fee income, and then estimate reduced intergovernment transfer payments. I think we need to look at a hiring freeze. I think we need to limit capital improvements to safety only, and then I would urge that we look at the union contracts, strongly urge, and postpone salary increases. And then lastly, you know, I don't know, Phil, you'll know a lot more about this, but if we're not negotiating with our bus company to stop paying salaries and full reimbursement per the contract for bus services that we're not using, we should be looking at that.
We are.
So, I just had, what's our process moving forward going to be looking like? And I'll turn this back over. I mean, maybe we could use this as a springboard to try and figure out. You can take the ball back. We try to figure out, what our process is going to be to reach agreement on where we need to be.
So Matt, thank you for the work you did on that and presenting it. For the members of the board, along with what you saw in Matt's presentation, I did send the electronic version of the DCM meeting that he attended. Thank you, Erica, for sending that to me. And so if anyone wants to review that anymore in whole, the good thing is in those emails, you'll see that I pointed out there's source information. It also is a cautionary tale because we know things are changing quickly. As I noted in my email, new unemployment numbers are due out tomorrow. So we'll have new, not cheerful maybe, but new information. This is a very quickly changing scenario. So numbers, some of the sources in that presentation are from the middle of March, which normally would seem very fresh. But we know in this situation, numbers from the middle of March are old because this is so dynamic. So to Matt's question about what do we do next, I'll take guidance from whoever on the board, has a particular opinion, but I think we should take our opportunity tonight to walk through some of these budget revisions that have been sent back to us, particularly if we think we might have some questions that we need to get answered between this week and next week. We need to look at what's there, not necessarily spend the entire night on every single line item, but just as we always do in the budget process, we should look for the things that concern us or the things that are major topics. Matt hit on some of the topics in his comments, whether it's salaries or whatever else. I think we should do something with the details. And that will also keep us from doing broad strokes, which I think most of us have commented so far. A broad stroke is really not the way we want to do things because different services and different agencies have different needs. To that point, Eric, I have a question for you. Do you expect to send any kind of a cover letter summarizing what you've done with your budgets and what revisions you've made? And if not, the second question, well, whether that's a yes or a no, the second question would be, can we get a copy of what you've done with capital? Because in your different budget scenarios, you show different amounts going to the capital plan. We're assuming you came up with those different amounts by selecting different projects to keep or not keep. And I'm wondering if we could get that information before next week.
Correct. Erica Wyszynski, First Selectman. I can, if Donna's on the line, we keep track of the changes as we go through the budget process. So I think you had that in your last packet. We can send that along, as well as, unless, I'm guessing it wasn't in your packet, a copy of the revised CIP plan that the Board of Selectmen worked on.
Unless I missed it, I didn't find it.
Donna, can you send that to the board?
Yes.
Along with the document that we were looking at this afternoon?
Yes.
So to get, for clarification, to get to the 3%, we had already shared with this board, maybe not, at the Board of Selectmen, the cuts we got to zero with, and most of that came from our SALT budget. And to get to zero, we took a combination of fund to get to -3, if that is the direction we go, between capital and between road funds. Troy presented the Board of Selectmen with not his ideal plan, but a unique plan in the event we had less funds than we hoped. I'll remind you all that his initial budget to us asked for much more money for roads, but he's presented us with a plan where he believes we can stretch less money to help our roads. It's not the ideal situation, but he believes in the long run it could benefit us over some of the other cuts that might have been on the table that we felt could be detrimental. So that
Okay.
was the majority of the cuts, $84,346,000 in capital was the change, and then less $19,654 in our roads, our chip seal plan.
Okay, thank you for that, Erica. It's Mike McCoo here. One other question too. Do we have Troy on tonight? Do you know?
Troy is on. Do you have a specific question?
Yeah, I just had a question in, it seems like there's, I think we touched on it a little bit, but we never really got to an answer. There seems to be a big jump in transfer station costs. I don't know if you call them tipping charges or whatever it's called, but it seems like there's a fairly good jump in that. And I just wanted to check in and try to find out what it is driving that.
Yeah, it was truing up those numbers. We see that we've under budgeted for those. And I actually believe this year we're going to be even more under budget on those numbers as people are home and working from home. If you go to the transfer station, you'll see an uptick in people. They're cleaning things out. They're doing renovation projects. So they're taking all of that either trash or bulk waste to the transfer station, myself included. I think everybody's done a little bit of something they might not have done otherwise. Our weekends aren't occupied with spending time with friends and family or at youth sports events, etc. So we've seen an uptick in that. But before this, we were under budgeted on some of those things. And it is one of those items that you don't know. You assume people are going to utilize a certain amount, and it's those tipping charges, as you will be what we budget for them, but they're really truing up those numbers, and those costs have gone up a little bit. So that's why you didn't see us adjust those numbers in the transfer station, because we would be doing ourselves a disservice. We'd be coming back to you asking for funds that we knew we were going to spend. But I think this year we might be looking for transfers from other places to true those up, as the longer people are home, the longer they're filling up those containers at the transfer station.
I do see on that your year-to-date, for example, on bulk waste disposal, line 523 is already over budget.
Yes.
Okay.
And I don't know if Troy is unmuted or if he's prepared to speak to that, but he could probably tell you a little bit about if there's an increase in a particular number of times they're coming out.
Troy, Mike, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, right now we're running, our bulky is 50% more than it was last year at this time. We've seen an increase every month since this has all started. So those that we are going to be probably, like Erica said, over that budget because of, I don't have exactly the number in front of me at the time, but we did figure out some stuff and we're running way over on bulky.
Troy worked on some projections with Donna just for this year. And again, I think that's directly related to COVID. If those are reimbursable expenses or not, the thought is no. It's just an unintended consequence.
Okay, thank you both for that. Matt, you had your hand up before?
I forgot.
Okay, wave again. I'll try to catch you on the next go round.
Will do.
Chief Moore, just because I see you there and we hit on something before that might affect you, just quickly, could you tell me when I believe your contracts are not up this year for your paid people at the fire station, is that correct?
Correct, they are not. It's 3 more years.
Okay.
They're first. This is year 1 of a 4-year contract.
Understood. Okay, thank you for that. Okay. Next, questions from board members. I'm getting the impression people need more time to digest, which is great. But I want to make sure that we've talked enough about this that we get any questions out.
Well, I mean, I know that we've talked to Troy and Erica a lot about the public works budget. But I am curious about, do we need to have in the lines that we have like 100 or 200% increase? They're usually things like repairs or parts or, equipment. And it's kind of a round number increase. And I'm just wondering, is there some give in some of those? Maybe it's not something we're going to fix in 1 year. And I'm sure these numbers don't even fix it in 1 year. But I'm just wondering if those are some areas that we could look at further.
Okay, Troy or Erica, any comments on that?
My comment is that we have looked at them over and we presented you, with the budget that we believe. So I think if you think that there's something otherwise, then you have something specific that you wanted to ask about. But, I would say that some of them, for instance, maintenance at the Old Town Hall, we put $1,000 in there, and so far this year we spent $4,006. The year before was $2,500. So, we did increase that to $2,000 this year. Could you drop that back? Sure. But those numbers get us to zero in flat spending. So my suggestion would not be, if I were, if we had to cut from somewhere, I certainly would, but I think that's your board's question now.
Thank you, Erica. Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Erica, for putting together the 0 and the -3. I look at our general town budget lines. I haven't been here as long as the rest of you folks have, but there's not a lot of fat there. And I know that's very difficult. So thank you very much for doing that. It's hard. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Are we done with item 2 for this week? Peter, Tanaka, were you about to say something?
Yes, Erica, I agree with what you did with the budget for rounding, moving some of these numbers up to the realistic bounds. For instance, if we budgeted $1,000 and we've been regularly spending $4, to move it to $4. I did notice, however, there were several lines where that we're significantly over budgeted every year. I was led to understand that this was because these areas sometimes lead to unexpected costs. I was wondering if there is at some point where we could move those back to the realistic spending. I don't know if you did or not. I wasn't able to review the numbers.
That's a pretty general, pretty broad statement. So if there were a line you were specifically looking at, I could take a look at and try and answer that.
I believe that the line that first comes to mind is the town lawyer line.
Peter, we never know what that's going to be.
I realize that, but over the past 3 or 4 years, it's been around half of what we've budgeted. So that's, and we thought the other way. We should be thinking in both directions, lowering budgets as well as increasing budgets to meet reality.
I would not alter the legal line item, certainly now, especially in these times. The kinds of items that are coming up require us to contact our lawyer. We never know what sort of situation we're going to find ourselves in. If we'll need legal, we could be coming back to you, but I wouldn't cut lower.
All right. If I don't have the line items in front of me because, like I said, I was having problems reading the printout that I had. So I'll get back to you once I get more specific.
Sure.
For board members, if you're having trouble, similar to what Peter mentioned about reading the documents that were sent to you. I will forward directly to you the emails I got from Donna, and Mike D'Amato also may be able to set us up with a sort of a file locker where we can put everything into it and give board members access to it, which would allow you to see the documents in their larger format, which might make it easier to handle them. So we'll start off right after this meeting. I'll email it directly to all of you and see if you can read it better. Matt Clark?
Yeah, maybe it would help. It would help me anyway. I'd like to have a little consensus of where we are amongst the board members. Can we, non-binding, it's not a budget vote, just a consensus of a feeling of the board. They have a word that they use for this with in Congress. I don't know, sense of the board, sense of the board. Can we, sort of think to ourselves and agree amongst ourselves that we're somewhere between 0 and -3% in our town budget for the coming year?
Well, I think that goes against everything we've been talking about not making broad stroke comments. However, I will for myself say that I can't see us having done our job of taking prudent care of the taxpayers' money if we raise taxes. That's my feeling. Our duty, even though these are extraordinary times and we kind of got the short end of the stick being board members during this, we're here, we're stuck with it. And the few people who are listening represent anybody in the town who could be listening, and we all represent those people. And we are not doing our job if we raise taxes during this situation. Now, I know that's not taking a giant leap, but I would say at least that's my consensus, that we can't be, even though we've kept 3 years of flat mill rate, this is not the year to change that in my mind. Pete Tanaka?
Yeah, I'd like to say that I agree with that, not adding taxes. We boosted the taxes 3 years ago strongly to cover ourselves should the state cause us to pay into the teacher retirement benefits. So we raised taxes then. I don't think now is the time to do it again. And I also think that we should look into not going into our fund balance to balance the budget, because that's our shock absorber. That's the number we're going to need should problems arise.
So,
Erica?
Erica Wyszynski, First Selectwoman. I'll just share with you a little bit of data. So between CCM and the COGS, and this survey I believe was from CCM, polling municipal CEOs, are collecting data so we can all get a kind of a sense of where everything is. And the majority of towns are looking at a flat budget. I haven't seen one that's looking to cut unless it was as a result of a grand list, a reval. And looking to keep the mill rate flat. So that's the consensus for the majority of municipalities across the state. And again, the question was asked, do we anticipate dipping into our general fund to balance the budget? And again, there was an overwhelming number of yeses in these surveys of towns. Again, it's not all towns, not everybody answers. You're certainly up to your it's up to you whether or not you choose to participate. But the majority of responses we're seeing are towns looking to remain flat at 0. The only cuts I've seen have been as a result of a reval, and most people are utilizing that fund balance to help balance the budget. Just to give you some food for thought about what other towns around the state are doing, looking at the similar issues.
Steph, did you have a comment on this sort of consensus question or the feelings?
You mean where I am?
Yeah.
I think I probably spoke prematurely when I already said that I think we should hold fast on the 30.09 because of duress for the taxpayer, and also just for the unforeseen. I don't really value the idea of going too deep in cuts at this point. I think we're not operating with that much information. I think we should definitely think about how we're slowing things up and how we're being considered about the things that we are spending on right now. But I think holding this budget flat is already going to,
Hey,
add a certain amount of harm. And again, I'll reiterate, I think it's important to not feed the unemployment, craziness and try to keep our staff in town and our services intact as much as possible. And I just might add too about education, about the school's budget. I feel strongly that the schools play a huge role in the recovery of our community in all this. I think the relationships with teachers and families is like no other relationships in town. And I think there's a value there that you can't put a dollar figure on. And I just don't agree with messing with that.
Thank you, Steph. Jeffrey, do you have any
I have-
comments on this?
I mean, I'll echo Peter's sentiment. Keep it as flat as possible, if not, and maybe actually going lower. But keeping our fund balance as high as possible, so we can. Invariably, we're gonna have to dip into that at some point, whether it's for some emergencies that do always come up, whether they're later in the year or farther down the road. Don't use that just for the sake of balancing and keeping a flat mill rate. We're going to need that.
Understood. Point of order here. Christina Milos has arrived. So we'll let the record show that she has assumed her spot and Mike Perry is relieved of his seat in her place.
Thank you, Mike.
Christina, will give you a minute to get caught up. What we're doing right now is we're having just sort of a general consensus conversation about where people think we should be as an overall budget theme. It's not a vote of any kind, and it's not specific. We're just sort of getting people's feelings. So for the sake of keeping this conversation going, Lisa Wolf, you had a comment?
I just wanted to say that I mirror Stephanie in her thoughtful response, and a little bit about the fund balance. I think it's my understanding that if you're not utilizing any of it to right size the mill rate or keep it at the 30.09, then it's almost over taxation, right? So I would say that you don't want to keep hoarding all that cash, because then it's not really clear what the value of running the town is. So I think even if we dipped into that little bit, there's still a lot left, right?
Yeah, I don't have the exact numbers right now, but we will make sure. I'll check in with Donna. And Donna, I don't know if you want to just make a quick comment. The budgets as originally presented, you had done a calculation assuming we were going to put the 410 into the budget from the fund balance, just as had been done in the current fiscal year. If you could just quickly refresh us on what that number was, what was left in the fund balance, assuming that 410 got plugged into the original requests. That's assuming no cuts are made. So that was the conversation we were having like 2 months ago. I'm just trying to give us a little bit of an idea.
Yes. After the 410 is applied, the estimated fund balance will be 2.5 million.
Yeah, that's way too
And
much.
And what is the percent?
14.6%.
That's not good. That's over taxation right there.
Okay, Donna, thank you. Hang on just a second, Lisa. Let me just, Donna, thank you for that number. We're certainly going to come back to that more as this conversation goes on. And I wonder, is there any way for you to move the formula for that onto your magic sheet, onto the summary that you included in the packet, so that when we play with the numbers, we can actually see that percentage go up and down? I know you do it on a separate sheet.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I will, maybe I will send you just a separate Excel spreadsheet, and then you can play around with it and see
Okay.
what the 8 to 12% range looks like per the policy.
Understood.
That's
Okay,
right.
thank you, Donna. And I don't want to forget Mike Perry, the last one in this consensus conversation. Mike Perry, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear me all right now or not. I
Yes,
don't know if I got my audio fixed.
we can hear you.
Okay, then I kind of agree with what Stephanie and Elizabeth was saying about the school, but there's a caveat that goes along with that. And with the schools, it is the only and the best way that you can build the community up and through those relationships within the school system. But at the same time, we're going to keep those numbers at the way they are, and we're going to have to look at the rest of the budget, and we're going to have to make cuts so that we don't inflate our budget, so to speak. I'm kind of looking at the possibility of freezing hiring, and on the pay raises for those that we have control over, we should cut them back about 10%. And if we have anybody that it's not actually necessary, or any items that aren't necessary, we need to cut them back or eliminate them altogether. So it's just going to be a line by line item that we're going to have to go through and look at and discuss and see where we're at.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Matt Clark, follow up on that?
Yeah, no follow-up on that. I want to comment on the consensus that I asked for. Which,
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking you had already. Go ahead.
so, yeah, I think we need to have the flexibility in case something goes wrong, to be able to move funds around. I saw us do this in my first finance meeting. Erica came to us and said, we have a problem. We got to move some things around. We got an unexpected expense. Well, in this case, our unexpected expenses could be millions of dollars, and we won't be able to move things around unless we have budgets that are, I think, below zero, -1, -2. This gives us the flexibility to say, okay, we're not going to get all the money that we anticipated from our property taxes. We're not going to get all the money we transfer payments from the state of Connecticut. Because we're taking the hard decisions now, we will be able to react to that. And I'm afraid that if we don't, we might run into problems. Erica, would it be possible for you to send the board members that survey of municipalities, or the results, or some kind of summary of that?
Potentially.
Okay. We seem to have moved towards item number 3. So wrapping up item 2, is there any more specific review and discussion about the revised budget submissions at this point? Matt?
I feel like I'm talking a lot, and I apologize to everyone, but I have to make a comment about. I'm happy with that everyone was able to get back to us with some very hard decisions about where they would cut in order to give the board flexibility in structuring a town budget that meets our needs. I have to single out the department, the Board of Education, and say you didn't do that. And it is not the best way to go about things to say we're going to cut unilaterally, or 2% or 3%. That's not good. It's not helpful. And I would ask that we go back and say, how do you reach, -3 and 0 in the Board of Education? It doesn't mean that the Board of Ed that we're going to say we're cutting your budget, but it allows us to be able to say, okay, if we can go down by 1%. Or something, I don't know, but it's not very helpful to just come back and say no, and it's an increase of $126,000. Maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but you guys increased our budget, increased your budget. We asked for 0 and -3, and you increased it. I mean, I look at the general budget, and it's like Band-Aids.
So was our school.
Matt, your point is well taken, but I think that the letter that came along with the budget explains what they felt they were able to do. And it's our job. I think they did their job as best they could. They gave us the information. I think it's pretty clear we don't know the exact dollars for the MBR as we talked about before, but it's pretty clear that the likelihood of going under flat is, it's pretty much off the table. We'll hopefully have better numbers next week to know if the state can give us any better MBR information. But I don't think that they ignored our request. I think they told us what they're able to tell us. And then it's our job to take it from there. We have variations all over the board. If you look in the budget, we have some people who put in when we asked for for 0 and -3, who came in with a positive 8.8 all the way across. So we just have to look at those and see why they did that and see if we can work with that. And that's what we're going to have to do, like next week. So as far as next steps, Erica, because we're in this unique world, if we were to assume that next week we made appropriations, we have a timeline we need to meet to make sure that we have public review, public comment, and then get this approved in time to print tax bills. So my feeling is if we put appropriations on the agenda for next week and we succeed in completing the appropriations next week, that then gives the public time for further review. Hopefully they'll review in between this week and next week anyway and comment. But then after next week, the week after that could be the final vote that uses, I guess we're calling it a public hearing still, but it's online. It's essentially through this same meeting format. So that would be 2 weeks from tonight. Is that
Correct.
kind of what we should be shooting for?
Yes, and that would give time for the assessor's office and the tax office to prepare the documents that are necessary and give time for those tax bills to come out. As you can imagine, everyone's business, including those who do our tax bills, are running slightly different than normal. And Janice, if I'm speaking out of turn, let me know. But they may need more time. Things aren't running as efficiently as they would under normal circumstances. So yes, that would give you enough time for a public hearing. In order to do that, you have to allow the public to view the meeting live. They, at minimum, have to have access to watching it and hearing it live, and then a place to provide public comment, whether that be at the meeting, via email, and by phone.
Okay, thank you. Steph?
Steph Summers. I thought that the basic framework was that we do the public hearing the third Thursday in May, and then we vote on the 4th. But are we saying we need to accelerate the whole thing because the town needs more time to deal with the tax bills and everything else going on?
Well, in what I just proposed, we would vote next week on our appropriations. We would essentially set the budget as we hope it would be. Then there would be a week in between. So that would be week 2. Then there's a week to week 3. That is the remaining public comment time period. It comes up to the public hearing. Week 3 would be the public hearing. And assuming there isn't a reason to change it at that time, we would finalize it at that moment, at that third meeting. We would vote on it, and that at that moment, then it would be signed, sealed, and delivered.
And then you would need, Mike, you need to set the mill rate at the same time. So in the
Correct.
same meeting,
Right.
adopt
Yes,
your budget.
appropriations and mill rate, yes, correct.
I understand that, but given that we're kind of just getting this and some people are not getting it in the format they're getting it, I thought we were going to have a couple of weeks to do the discussion and the figuring. And it seems pretty fast. We have to do what we have to do, but I'm thinking, do we need another discussion date or something? I mean, does anyone else feel that way, or?
Well, my feeling is we have the benefit of having been through these budgets a lot already. if we truly can't make all of the appropriations next week, then we will have to make the decision at that meeting to push out. We either push out to the fourth week or we add a meeting in between. But at this point, I think we should set our sights on next week being appropriations. If we can always add another meeting if we have to.
Okay.
So the third meeting, we're not yet going to put the agenda out. We will not make a public agenda for the third meeting being the public hearing until we see how next week goes.
And keep in mind, the assessor's office needs at least a week between you setting the mill rate and sending documents for tax bills to be printed.
Understood. Any more board comments on the next steps and how to move forward? Okay. We have no old business on the agenda. Correspondence has been passed on to all the board members via email. I'm sorry there was so much this week, but there's been a lot of correspondence, a lot of material. So we're going to go back to public present to speak again, so that anyone who's had an opportunity to develop a new question or comment on what we've done so far tonight has an opportunity. So anyone who's on video who would like to speak, please wave your hand and we'll start trying to get you, and then we will go back to the phone again as we did before. I see people waving hands. Okay, Christina, since you're a board member, let's get you first. You're still muted.
She's not muted, but we can't hear her.
Can the moderator unmute her?
She's not muted.
Yeah, her mic shows active on my side.
No, we can't hear you.
Well, the other thing you can do is you can ask her to call in.
Yeah, maybe, Christina, you can call in on your cell phone to get the audio and leave your visual on the computer. There is a call-in number on the agenda. Okay, other people wave your Peter Latinzix, please.
Thank you. Peter Latinchich, 97 Trask Road. I took the liberty during the MBR discussion to understand it better by visiting the and they had this helpful frequently asked questions section, and in there's a section that outlines the exceptions to the MBR, and one of the high school enrollment drops. It's the fourth bullet if you're looking at that document, and it says that we can reduce our MBR by that amount when that enrollment decline occurs. So I would ask the Board of Finance and the Board of Ed to, when they get that recalculation, to see if they can include that data, because we have that large $176,000 decline in the Region 19 budget, which doesn't happen very often. So hopefully can help both the education and town budgets. More interesting to me was the actual calculation sheet I found. I couldn't find the 2021 version you guys were looking for, but I found the 1921. And on the calc sheet are categories for reductions. Most striking is number 13, closed school deduction. Right now, Willington is showing 0. And catastrophic event loss deduction, we're showing 0. I can't think of two more prescient categories right now than closed school and catastrophic event loss, based on where we are. So if you could also visit those items as well, I'm sure we all benefit from it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. Okay. I can't see a name. I see a little Mike D'Amato. Can you see the lady in the green sweater waving?
Yep, Michelle, you should be good.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, Michelle Doucette Cunningham, 41 Liska Road. I also serve on the Board of Education. I wanted to mention and clarify your question a moment ago, Peter, about closed school. I have to point out that school teachers are continuing to provide classes and education. We've continued to provide lunch to our students. Classes are canceled, but the schools are not really closed. We are still actively doing a lot of distance learning. That particular piece in the MBR calculation is meant when you close one school in a district, or you redistrict, or there are other changes and the entire school ceases to serve students for the entire year, it allows you to change things. This is not the case this year, so that particular one is not going to be anything that helps to save us next year. The MBR is notoriously difficult to calculate, and it's also notoriously rare that they ever give any waivers for any purpose. We had tried in the past for some of the thoughts we had made in previous years, but we were not successful. We'll continue, of course, to make a strong case should conditions allow, but do not at all be surprised if we are unable to get additional information. The state does not move that quickly. We've never had these numbers this early in the year. Typically that's much later. So, please don't hold out for that being the answer and it's going to be able to make your jobs easier, because I don't believe it's going to give us any clarity by the end of May. That said, I also wanted to point out in terms of process that the Board of Education did take your comments very seriously. We had a lot of discussions and we gave you the cuts that we thought made the most sense, given the fact that we have to live within the MBR. So if you also look at some of the other choices that are going to have to be made, I want to note that a lot of the teachers and the staff who work in Willington schools also live in Willington, and that I urge you to consider to cut staff at the last and make that a priority to try and keep all of the staff on, because you're only going to add to the unemployment problem if you start cutting services, cutting people, both in the schools and on the town side. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Other present to speak on video, wave your hand, please. Christina, can we hear you yet?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm on my other computer now. What was I going to say? First, I just wanted to apologize for being late. I was on a work call. I'm really sorry that I missed all the conversation. I'm not sure what was decided or said, so I definitely missed quite a bit. I just wanted to say, I don't know if the mill rate was discussed or what the goal is, but I think that going below the last year's mill rate would be a big deal to do, and I don't think that the 6 of us who are on this board and have some of us, 2 of us weren't even elected to be on this board. We were appointed to be on the board. I don't feel like I am in a position to vote to make some serious changes to the town without having the townspeople be able to be at these meetings. They're here, but it's not like it usually is. And it's a big things we're talking about doing that need a lot more thought. So anything we can do to just keep things the same, I think would be the goal we should be shooting for. So that's all I have to say.
All right. Thank you for that, Christina. So moving on to people who have called in by phone, I'm going to ask Mike D'Amato to unmute everything. If you have a comment you'd like to make and you are on phone, please calmly speak up and we'll take you as we can sort you out. So Mike, let us know when you've got everyone unmuted.
Okay. The callers that I see, I pushed on mute.
Okay, any callers out there want to call out your name and ask to speak? Okay, seeing none, we'll close present to speak. Good and welfare, I'll just comment that thank you to anyone from the public who's listening. Thank you to all the presenters who have joined us tonight. Thank you to the board, our administration. Everyone is working in this really weird environment. And I appreciate the fact that we're all trying to work in this environment and kind of keep it together, and not only the virtual meeting environment, but also in this very unexpected and odd financial environment, public health environment. So unless anyone else has something important for Peter Tanaka, go ahead.
I'd like to move to adjourn.
Can we get a second?
Second, Steph Somers.
All right, Marissa, can you do a roll? Yeah, Marissa, please do a roll call.
Yep. Peter,
Yes.
Jeff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I said Jeff, but Steph.
Sorry.
Jeff as well.
Yes.
Okay, Christina.
Yes.
Matt
Yes.
and Mike.
Yes. Thank you all. We are adjourned at 8:40 p.m.
Thank you.